Something is happening across America right now, and most people are only noticing it one parking lot at a time. A storefront that was open last month is dark. A pharmacy that filled your prescriptions for a decade has a paper sign in the window. A fast food restaurant your family visited every Friday has locked its doors for good. Individually, each of these moments feels like a minor inconvenience. But when you step back and look at the full picture, it tells a bigger story about the economy, about consumer behavior, and about the kinds of places Americans are quietly losing access to. In 2026 alone, retail analytics firm CoreSite Research projects roughly 7,900 U.S. store closures, and that is actually considered an improvement over the previous 2 years. Over 8,100 stores closed in 2025 alone. The brands being affected are not fringe players or niche boutiques nobody had heard of. They are household names. Brands that shaped how Americans shopped, ate, filled prescriptions, and spent Saturday afternoons for decades. And the reasons they are closing are not simple. There is no single villain in this story. There are pressures, plural, and they have been building for years. Here are 10 of the biggest retail names closing stores across America in 2026, what is driving each situation, and why the full picture matters far beyond the shopping experience. Let's open with a name that has been in the news for unusual reasons in recent years, but the retail reality behind GameStop is far less dramatic than the stock market headline suggested. GameStop is closing more than 470 locations across 43 states in 2026 alone, following the closure of nearly 590 stores in the previous fiscal year. That is over 1,000 locations gone in just 2 years from a chain that still operates roughly 2,000 stores nationwide. The core problem for GameStop is structural and has been visible for over a decade. The video game industry moved digital. When a consumer can purchase a new title instantly from a console's online store without leaving the couch, the physical retail model for games becomes increasingly difficult to justify. GameStop has tried to pivot, most recently by leaning into trading cards and even Bitcoin under CEO Ryan Cohen, but those moves have not replaced the volume that game disc sales once generated. The closures represent a company in managed retreat, not sudden collapse. GameStop still has loyal customers and a recognizable brand. But 470 store closures in a single year confirm that the business model built around physical game media is contracting faster than any new strategy has been able to compensate for. When the product you were built to sell no longer requires a physical store to sell it, the stores themselves become difficult to justify. There has long been a belief in the retail world that luxury is immune to downturns. Wealthy consumers keep spending even when working-class families pull back. Premium brands hold their pricing power when mass-market stores are slashing prices just to move inventory. That belief has taken real damage in 2026. Saks Off Fifth, the outlet arm of luxury retailer Saks Fifth Avenue, is closing approximately 57 locations in early 2026 as part of the broader financial restructuring of Saks Global. The parent company filed for bankruptcy protection, and the restructuring has meant shedding the outlet division to try to protect what remains of the core Saks Fifth Avenue brand. The deeper issue is that the pandemic-era luxury surge is over. Between 2021 and 2023, affluent consumers spent aggressively, making up for years of restricted travel and dining. That wave has passed. Retail analysts now describe even wealthier shoppers as more deliberate, more experience-focused, and less inclined to browse physical stores on impulse. Spending on travel, dining, and experiences has pulled discretionary dollars away from traditional department store fashion. The upscale mall trip simply carries less appeal for younger, affluent consumers than it did for previous generations. When the category that was supposed to be permanently recession-proof starts showing cracks, it removes one of the last comfortable assumptions retailers had been relying on. 100 stores. That is the number of Carter's children's clothing locations scheduled to close in 2026 as part of a broader plan to shutter approximately 150 stores over the next 3 years. For a brand this deeply associated with newborn clothing, holiday pajamas, and first shoes, that scale of reduction is not a footnote. It is a signal about what has changed in how young families spend money. The instinct is to call children's clothing non-discretionary. Kids always need clothes, and they always outgrow them quickly. That logic held for a long time. It holds less firmly now. Carter's itself cited the impact of significant new tariffs on imported goods in press statements about the closures, noting that the Trump administration's tariff policies on products imported from a wide range of countries had affected business operations. Beyond tariffs, the resale market for children's clothing has grown substantially. Because a child outgrows a size in months, buying second-hand and reselling once the next size is needed has become a rational first choice for many families, not a last resort. That shift quietly drains demand from physical retail in ways that promotions cannot fully reverse. There is also a longer-term demographic factor. U.S. birth rates have continued to trend downward, gradually contracting the core customer base that children's retailers depend on. It is a slow-moving headwind, but it compounds every other pressure on the business. The combination of tariff costs, resale competition, and demographic change has made a smaller retail footprint the practical reality for Carter's going forward. Walk into almost any American mall built in the last half-century and you will find the same basic design. Large anchor stores at each end, smaller shops filling the space between them. The entire structure was built on the assumption that a department store would generate enough foot traffic to keep everything around it financially viable. Macys was that anchor. Macys is now in the process of closing approximately 150 stores by the end of 2026 as part of its bold new chapter strategy, announced in 2024. The company is concentrating resources on higher-performing locations, its Bloomingdale's banner, and investing more heavily in e-commerce. The business logic is straightforward. The second-order consequences are what most coverage underplays. When a Macys closes, it does not simply remove itself from the local economy. Restaurants, salons, specialty retailers, and service businesses that depended on the foot traffic flowing through that anchor location feel the drop almost immediately. A department store closure can set off a cascade that weakens an entire shopping corridor. Those effects are hard to reverse once they begin. The deeper issue is that the department store shopping model was built around a specific behavior: unhurried browsing, wandering between departments, discovering products without a defined goal. That behavior has largely migrated online. The advantages Macys once offered, wide selection, tactile shopping, and the in-store experience, can now be approximated digitally with greater convenience and lower friction. Macys as a national brand is surviving. The neighborhood version of it, the anchor store that defined local shopping for generations, is receding. Grocery is not a discretionary category. People do not stop buying food when the economy tightens. That is precisely why Kroger's announced plans to close approximately 60 underperforming supermarkets across the United States over an 18-month period deserve careful attention. From one of the largest grocery retailers in the country, 60 closures in an essential category is not a routine portfolio adjustment. The economics behind the decision are real and complicated. Labor, refrigeration, utilities, rent, insurance, theft prevention, and logistics all eat into grocery margins that were already thin before the cost pressures of recent years arrived. When food prices rise, consumers direct frustration at the store, but the store is simultaneously absorbing cost increases it cannot fully pass through. The pressure arrives from both directions at once. Kroger also absorbed a significant strategic setback when its proposed merger with Albertsons was blocked by federal regulators. That deal was designed to build a more efficient, larger-scale network capable of competing with Walmart, Costco, and Amazon at the low end of the market. Without it, Kroger navigates an intensifying competitive landscape on its existing footprint, without the cost structure improvements the merger would have provided. Shopper behavior has shifted in ways that further compress per-visit revenue. Digital coupon use has climbed. Private label products are growing as households trade down from name brands. An increasing number of families are splitting grocery trips across 2 or 3 different stores each week, chasing the lowest price on each individual item. That behavior, once unusual, has become normalized. For grocery operators whose margins leave almost no room for error, these behavioral shifts push marginal locations into unprofitable territory. A clothing store closing is an inconvenience. A favorite restaurant closing means finding somewhere new for dinner. A pharmacy closing takes something that cannot be replaced by a quick internet search or a longer drive. Walgreens previously announced plans to close approximately 1,200 underperforming stores over a 3-year period as part of a broader turnaround strategy. In 2026, the company has scaled back the pace, now expecting to close fewer than 100 locations this year. But the cumulative impact of years of closures is already being felt in communities across the country. CVS has also been reducing its store count, and Rite Aid completed the closure of all its remaining stores as part of its bankruptcy wind-down. A 2026 study published in JAMA Network Open by researchers at The Ohio State University found that nearly half of the counties in the United States have at least one pharmacy desert, defined as a location where there is no retail pharmacy within 10 miles. That number reflects closures that have been accumulating for years, not a single year's decisions. The community impact is not evenly distributed. A 2022 analysis by the Chicago Sun-Times found that access to the two largest pharmacy chains in Chicago is significantly higher in white communities than in Black or Latino neighborhoods. When Walgreens closes a store on Chicago's South Side, as it has done repeatedly in recent years, residents in those neighborhoods lose prescription access, pharmacist consultations, and an accessible first point of contact for basic health questions. Some cannot easily travel to an alternative. Community leaders and residents in Chicago's Chatham neighborhood rallied in protest outside a closing Walgreens in May 2026, demanding that the company either keep the store open or invest in alternative healthcare access for the community. The pharmacy closure trend is not a Walgreens-specific problem. It is an industry-wide response to structural economics, declining front-of-store sales, compressed reimbursement rates from pharmacy benefit managers, rising labor costs for pharmacists and technicians, and theft losses in some urban locations. When multiple major chains reach the same conclusion simultaneously, it means the model itself is under pressure. And the communities that lose access are not losing a shopping convenience. They are losing a healthcare resource. Pizza Hut once had a place in American family life that had little to do with the pizza itself. The dining room, the booth, the salad bar, the specific atmosphere of a Friday night out that did not require a special occasion. For millions of families across the country, a visit to Pizza Hut was a weekly ritual, not just a meal. Approximately 250 Pizza Hut restaurants in the United States are at risk of closure, according to reporting by the Associated Press, tied to financial difficulties within major franchise operations. The closures reflect a structural mismatch between what the brand was built to offer and how Americans consume pizza in 2026. Delivery apps now place dozens of pizza options on a single screen, sorted by speed and price. Independent local shops compete on quality and freshness in ways that national chains struggle to match at scale. Grocery store pizza sections have expanded significantly, and home cooking broadly increased as the price gap between restaurant meals and grocery ingredients widened. A full meal at a Pizza Hut restaurant can now cost more than preparing the same meal at home by a meaningful margin. The buildings themselves are part of the problem. Pizza Hut locations were built around a dine-in model, with standalone structures designed for sit-down service. Those buildings are expensive to operate and difficult to repurpose when the dining traffic that once justified the overhead has declined. Franchise operators managing individual locations must absorb higher ingredient costs, higher labor costs, and delivery platform fees simultaneously, while competing for a consumer who has more options and less brand loyalty than any previous generation. Brand memory is real, but it does not cover operating costs. Fast food made one promise for roughly 6 decades: it is cheap, it is fast, and it is always available. That combination made fast food more than a restaurant category. For millions of American households, especially those operating on tight budgets, it was a practical strategy for feeding a family without significant planning or expense. That promise is under real pressure in 2026. Wendy's has been linked in recent reporting to the closure of hundreds of underperforming restaurant locations as the company evaluates which units can remain profitable given current cost structures. The chain is not in crisis, but the direction of the numbers reflects the same pressures other fast food brands are facing simultaneously. A full combo meal at most major chains now regularly runs between $9 and $12. A family of 4 eating fast food for dinner can approach $50 with drinks. That is no longer an automatic bargain when compared to cooking a similar meal at home or picking up prepared food from a grocery store. The calculation that once made fast food the obvious default for budget-conscious families has become a real calculation, with an answer that is shifting for a growing number of households. Minimum wage increases across multiple states have raised labor costs at the unit level. Beef prices, central to Wendy's identity, have remained elevated. Commercial rents in well-trafficked areas keep rising. Utilities, insurance, and equipment maintenance add to the pressure. When rising costs on the operational side and weakening value perception on the consumer side converge at the unit level, franchise operators face a gap that value menus and loyalty apps can narrow but cannot close. In lower traffic markets, that gap becomes impossible to bridge. The era when any fast food location could survive on habit and convenience alone, without strong traffic or tight operations, is ending.